The night was cold and quiet when Taeho heard the sound. He was inside his small barn, checking on a sick calf that had not been eating for 2 days. The animal was finally sleeping, and Taeho felt some relief. Then the sky turned bright orange, and a terrible noise filled the air. He ran outside and looked up. Something was falling from the sky. It was not a plane, it was not a meteor, it was something else entirely. The object left a trail of fire behind it as it crashed into the mountains, about 2 kilometers from his farm. The ground shook under his feet. Taeho stood there for a long moment, his heart beating fast. He was a simple man now. He lived alone on this farm in the Korean countryside, far from the city, far from people. He liked it that way. After his years as a military medic, he wanted peace. He wanted to forget the things he had seen. But something inside him would not let him ignore this. He went back inside his house and grabbed a flashlight, a first aid kit, and his old jacket. The mountain path was dangerous at night, but he had walked it many times. He knew the way. It took him almost an hour to reach the crash site. What he found there made him stop breathing. The trees were broken and burned in a wide circle. In the center was wreckage. Metal pieces were scattered everywhere, but they were not like any metal he had ever seen. They seemed to glow faintly with a soft blue light. The shapes were wrong too. No human machine looked like this. Taeho approached slowly. His hands were shaking. He told himself to stay calm. He had seen terrible things in his life. He could handle this. Then he saw her. She was lying in the middle of the wreckage. A woman. At least, she looked like a woman. Her skin was pale, violet, like the color of flowers in spring. Her hair was long and silver white, spread around her head like a fan. She wore armor, but the armor was broken and cracked. Dark liquid pooled beneath her body. Blood. She was bleeding. Taeho rushed to her side and knelt down. His medical training came back to him immediately. He checked her breathing. It was weak, but she was alive. He looked at her wounds. There were burns on her arms and legs, deep cuts on her stomach and chest. Someone had hurt her very badly. Not something, someone. These wounds came from weapons. He did not understand what he was seeing. His mind told him this was impossible. Aliens did not exist. This had to be a dream. But the blood on his hands was real. The cold air was real. Her faint heartbeat under his fingers was real. He made his decision quickly. He could not leave her here to die. Taeho was not a big man, but he was strong from years of farm work. He carefully lifted her body over his shoulders. She was lighter than he expected, but the walk back was still very difficult. Several times he almost fell. The path was dark, and her blood dripped down his back. When he finally reached his farmhouse, he was exhausted. He laid her on his bed and immediately began to work. He cleaned her wounds as best as he could. The burns were strange. They did not look like fire burns. They looked like something had hit her with pure energy. Her body was different from a human body in small ways. Her bones seemed stronger. Her blood was darker, almost purple. But her organs seemed to be in similar places. He could work with that. For hours, Taeho did everything he knew how to do. He stitched her wounds. He bandaged her burns. He gave her water through a small tube. He did not sleep. He just kept working, kept watching, kept hoping. By morning, she was still alive. That was a miracle. Taeho sat in a chair beside the bed and finally allowed himself to rest. He looked at her face. Even with all her wounds, she was beautiful in a strange and frightening way. Her features were sharp, like they were carved from stone. Even unconscious, there was something powerful about her. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she hurt so badly? He had no answers. He only knew that she needed help, and he was the only one who could give it. Over the next 3 days, she did not wake up. Her fever was very high. She shook and trembled in her sleep. Sometimes she spoke in a language he did not understand. Her voice was deep and commanding, even in her dreams. Taeho barely left her side. He changed her bandages. He tried to give her soup, but she could not swallow. He talked to her, even though she could not hear him. He told her about his farm, about his animals, about the mountains around them. He told her about his sister Hana, who lived in Seoul, and worried about him too much. He told her about his time in the military, about the soldiers he had tried to save and the ones he had lost. He told her about his guilt, his nightmares, his reasons for living alone. Talking helped him stay calm. It helped him feel less afraid. On the fourth night, her fever finally broke. Her breathing became stronger, the color returned to her skin. Taeho felt tears in his eyes. He had not cried in many years, but he cried now. She was going to live. He did not know who she was. He did not know what she was. He did not know that in the vast darkness of space, entire fleets were searching for her. He did not know that she had ruled an empire of 400 star systems for 300 years. He did not know that she had killed millions with her own hands. He did not know that she was called the Void Walker, and that her name made entire planets surrender in fear. He knew none of this. He only knew that she was hurt, and he had helped her. That was enough for him. Taeho leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Outside, the sun was rising over the mountains. A new day was beginning. He did not know it yet, but his life would never be the same again. Valera opened her eyes and saw a wooden ceiling above her. For a moment, she did not understand. Where was she? The last thing she remembered was fire and pain. Her ship breaking apart. The cold emptiness of space pulling at her body. Then, nothing. She tried to move, but her body screamed with pain. She looked down and saw bandages covering her arms and chest. Someone had treated her wounds. Someone had saved her. A door opened, and a man walked in. He was carrying a bowl of something hot. When he saw that her eyes were open, he stopped. His face showed surprise, then relief, then something she did not expect: kindness. "You are awake," he said in a language she did not know. But her mind was already working, already learning. Her species could absorb languages quickly. She listened carefully to every word he spoke. He approached her slowly, like she was a wounded animal that might attack. He was smart to be careful. Even in her weakened state, she could kill him in 100 different ways. But she did not. She only watched. He sat beside her bed and showed her the bowl. It was soup. He made gestures to show eating. She understood. She was too weak to feed herself. He helped her, bringing the spoon to her lips with gentle patience. The soup was simple but warm. She had eaten the finest foods in the galaxy, meals prepared by the greatest chefs of 100 worlds. But this simple soup made by a stranger tasted better than all of them. When she finished, he spoke again. She understood more words now. He asked if she was in pain. She nodded. He brought her medicine. She did not know if human medicine would work on her body, but she was too tired to refuse. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, her body began to heal. Human medicine was primitive, but the man was skilled. He changed her bandages every day. He cleaned her wounds carefully. He watched for infection and fever. He did everything right. She learned his language fully within the first week. She listened to him talk, and she absorbed every word. He talked a lot. He told her his name was Taeho. He told her about his life on this farm. He told her about animals called cows and chickens and dogs. He told her about the mountains and the seasons. He also told her about himself, about the war he had fought, about the people he could not save, about the guilt that lived inside his heart. He spoke about these things quietly, like they were secrets he had never shared before. Valera listened to everything. She did not know why he was telling her these things. In her world, showing weakness was dangerous. Enemies would use it against you. But this man showed her his wounds freely, as if he trusted her. Trust. That was another thing she did not understand. When she was finally strong enough to speak, she said her name, Valera. His face brightened. Valera, he repeated. That is a beautiful name. No one had ever called her name beautiful before. They called it terrifying. They called it death. They whispered it in fear across 1,000 worlds. She told him she was a traveler. Her ship had been damaged, and she had crashed here. It was not a lie, but it was not the full truth either. She did not tell him about the betrayal. She did not tell him about the coalition of enemies who had attacked her fleet. She did not tell him about the assassination attempt that had nearly succeeded. She did not tell him who she really was. He accepted her explanation without question. He did not push for more. He simply said, "You are safe here. Rest and heal." Safe. When was the last time she had felt safe? She could not remember. As the weeks continued, Valera grew stronger. She could sit up on her own. She could walk short distances. Tejo helped her exercise, supporting her weight as she took small steps around the house. He was patient with her. He never complained, never showed frustration. She began to observe his daily life. He woke up early every morning to feed his animals. He worked in his fields until sunset. He ate simple meals alone. He read books by candlelight. He lived a quiet life with no servants, no guards, no advisors. It was so different from her existence. She had palaces on 12 worlds. She had millions of soldiers who would die at her command. She had advisors and generals and diplomats who fought for her attention every moment. Her life was filled with war and politics and power. This man had none of those things. And yet, he seemed content. One evening, she asked him why he lived alone. He was quiet for a long time before answering. "I saw too much death," he said. "I needed to find a place where I could live peacefully, where I could help things grow instead of watching them die." She understood that feeling more than he knew. He asked about her world. She told him small truths. Her planet was far away. Her people were old and powerful. She had duties and responsibilities that weighed heavily on her. She missed her home, but was not sure she wanted to return. He nodded, like he understood. Maybe he did? One night, she had a terrible dream. She was back in battle, surrounded by enemies, covered in blood. She woke up screaming, her body shaking with fear. Tejo came running into her room. He did not ask questions. He simply sat beside her and held her hand until she stopped shaking. He stayed with her until she fell asleep again. When she woke the next morning, he was still there, sleeping in the chair beside her bed. Something changed inside her that day. She did not have words for it yet, but she felt it, a warmth in her chest, a crack in the wall around her heart. This human had saved her life. He had cared for her wounds. He had held her hand in the darkness. He asked for nothing in return. In 300 years of ruling an empire, no one had ever shown her such simple kindness. Her subjects bowed to her in fear. Her enemies trembled before her. But no one had ever just held her hand. She looked at Tejo sleeping in his chair, and she felt something she had not felt in centuries. Gratitude, and perhaps something more. Winter came to the mountains, and snow covered the farm in white. Valera had never seen snow before. On her home world, the weather was controlled by machines. There were no seasons, no surprises, no natural beauty. She stood outside the farmhouse one morning and watched the snowflakes fall from the sky. Each one was different, Tejo had told her. Each one was unique. She caught one on her finger and watched it melt away. Such a small and fragile thing, yet somehow beautiful. Her body was almost fully healed now. Her strength was returning. She could move without pain, walk without help. Soon, she would be strong enough to leave, strong enough to return to her empire and face her enemies. But she did not want to think about that. Not yet. She had started helping Tejo with his work around the farm. It was strange at first. She had never done physical labor in her life. She had servants for everything. But Tejo showed her how to feed the chickens, how to milk the cows, how to chop wood for the fire. She was terrible at all of it. The first time she tried to collect eggs, she crushed 3 of them in her hands. She did not know her own strength. Teho laughed at the look on her face, and after a moment, she laughed too. She could not remember the last time she had laughed. The cows were afraid of her. Animals could sense danger, Teho explained. They knew she was a predator. But slowly, with patience, they began to accept her presence. One small calf even started following her around the barn. She likes you, Teho said with a smile. Valera looked at the small creature pressing against her leg. In her empire, she was worshipped and feared. Billions of beings bowed when she passed. But this small animal simply wanted to be near her. It made her feel something she could not name. She observed Teho carefully during these days. He was not a warrior. He had no special powers or abilities. He was just a man who had chosen to live quietly and do simple good things. He healed sick animals. He grew food from the earth. He found joy in small moments. And yet there was strength in him. She could see it in the way he faced each day without complaint, in the way he carried his past without letting it break him, in the way he had saved her life without hesitation. Humans were supposed to be a primitive species. Her empire had records of them. They were classified as pre-contact civilization, too young and weak to be worth conquering. But Teho did not seem weak to her. One afternoon, his sister, Hana, came to visit. Valera heard the car coming up the road and immediately became alert. Old instincts told her to hide, to prepare for attack. But Teho put his hand on her shoulder. "It is just my sister," he said. "She is harmless. Just pretend you are a foreigner visiting Korea." Valera did not know how to pretend. She had never needed to, but she tried. Hana was a small woman with sharp eyes and a quick smile. She looked at Valera with obvious curiosity and suspicion. Valera understood. A strange woman living with her brother was unusual. "Where are you from?" Hana asked. "Very far away," Valera said. Her Korean was good now, but she still had an accent that did not match any Earth language. "How did you meet my brother?" "She was in an accident nearby," Teho said quickly. "I helped her recover. She is staying until she is strong enough to travel." Hana did not look convinced, but she did not push further. Over dinner, she watched Valera carefully. Valera tried to eat like a human, to move like a human, to smile like a human. She was not sure she was succeeding, but something changed during the meal. Hana began to relax. She talked about her work as a journalist in Seoul. She complained about the city traffic and her demanding boss. She teased Teho about his lonely life on the farm. Valera watched the brother and sister interact. They argued and laughed and interrupted each other constantly. There was love between them, easy and natural. No power struggles, no hidden agendas, no fear. This was family, Valera realized. This was what normal beings had. She had no family. Her parents had died centuries ago in the wars that brought her to power. She had no siblings, no children, no close bonds of any kind. She had only subjects and enemies. After Hana left, Teho found Valera sitting alone outside, looking at the stars. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Your sister loves you very much," Valera said. "She worries too much. But yes, she is a good sister. You are lucky to have her." Teho sat down beside her. "Do you have family back where you come from?" Valera was quiet for a long moment. "No," she finally said. "I have no one." He did not offer empty words of comfort. He simply sat with her in the silence, and somehow that was enough. Later that night, Teho asked her a question that stopped her heart. "Valera, why did you have so many wounds? Those cuts were not from an accident. Someone attacked you." She had known this question would come eventually. She had prepared lies to tell him. But looking at his honest face, she found that she could not lie. "Yes," she said, "someone wanted me dead. Many people, actually." "Why?" "Because of who I am. Because of what I have done." He waited for her to say more, but she could not. Not yet. The truth was too heavy, too terrible. If he knew who she really was, he would never look at her the same way again. "You do not have to tell me," he said finally. Whatever you did, whoever you are safe here. I will not let anyone hurt you." She almost laughed at that. This simple human promising to protect her, the most deadly warrior in the galaxy. He had no idea what was coming. The enemies searching for her would not stop. They would find her eventually. And when they did, they would destroy everything in their path, including him. She should leave. She should go now, before she brought destruction to his peaceful life. But she did not move. She stayed beside him, watching the stars, feeling the cold wind on her face. Just a little longer, she told herself. Just a few more days of this peace. She did not know that her time had already run out. The signs began 3 days later. Valera felt them before she saw them. A strange pressure in her mind, like a distant storm approaching. Her senses were sharper than any human could understand. She could feel the energy of ships moving through space, even from the surface of this planet. They were coming. At first, she said nothing to Tejo. She watched the skies at night, counting the lights that did not belong there. She listened to his radio and heard reports of strange sightings across the world. Lights in the sky over Japan, unusual signals detected by observatories in America, governments issuing confused statements. The galaxy was closing in on this small blue world. Tejo noticed her changed behavior. "What is wrong?" he asked one evening. "You seem worried." She wanted to tell him everything, but how could she explain? How could she make him understand the danger they were in? "I need to leave soon," she said instead. "My people are looking for me. They will find me eventually." Is that a bad thing? Some of them want to help me. Others want to kill me. Tejo was quiet for a moment. "Then stay here. They will not find you in this small place." She almost smiled at his innocence. "They will find me anywhere. I have something inside me, a signal that cannot be hidden. I should have left weeks ago. I have already stayed too long." "Why did you stay?" The question caught her off guard. Why had she stayed? Her wounds had healed enough for travel days ago. She could have found a way off this planet, could have sent a message to her loyal forces. But she had not. "I do not know," she admitted. And it was true. She did not understand what kept her here, in this simple farmhouse, with this simple man. But she knew she had to go now. Every moment she stayed put, Tejo in greater danger. That night, she began preparing to leave. She had almost nothing. The clothes Tejo had given her, a small knife she had made from metal scraps, nothing else. Her armor was destroyed, her weapons gone. She would face her enemies nearly defenseless. She did not tell Tejo her plan. She would leave before dawn, disappear into the mountains, draw her hunters away from this place. He would be safe. He would forget about her eventually. He would return to his peaceful life. It was better this way. But the universe had other plans. She felt them arrive just before midnight. 3 ships, small and fast, landing in the valley below the farm. Scout ships, assassins. The Dominion of Shadows had found her first. Valera moved quickly. She went to Tejo's room and woke him with a hand over his mouth. "Do not speak," she whispered. "They are here." His eyes went wide, but he did not panic. He nodded, and she removed her hand. "Who?" he asked quietly. "Enemies. They have come to kill me. You need to hide. The basement, a closet, anywhere. Do not come out until I tell you." "What about you?" "I will deal with them." She saw the confusion in his face. How could she deal with anything? She was a wounded traveler, a refugee he had nursed back to health. She had spent weeks struggling to carry buckets of water and collect eggs. He did not know. "Valera, you cannot fight. Let me call the police. Let me help." "Your police cannot help. Your weapons cannot hurt them. Please, Tejo, trust me, hide." But he would not. She saw it in his eyes. This stubborn human would not abandon her. Even now, facing something he could not understand, he refused to run. There was no more time to argue. She heard movement outside. They were already surrounding the house. Valera walked to the front door and stepped outside into the cold night. 3 figures stood in the yard. They wore dark armor that seemed to absorb the moonlight. Their faces were hidden behind masks. In their hands, they carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Elite soldiers of the Dominion, sent to finish what the assassination had started. Empress Valera, one of them said. His voice was mechanical, filtered through his mask. The Voidwalker, you are looking rather pathetic these days. She stood straight and faced them without fear. She was still weak. She had no weapons, no armor. Against 3 elite assassins, she had almost no chance. But she was still who she was. You found me, she said calmly. Congratulations. Now you will die. They laughed. The leader raised his weapon. You are unarmed and barely standing. What can you possibly do? In answer, she moved. Even weakened, even injured, she was faster than anything they had ever seen. She crossed the distance between them in the time it took their hearts to beat once. Her hand caught the leader's wrist and twisted. The weapon fired into the sky as his arm snapped like a dry branch. She took the weapon from his broken hand and drove it through his chest before he could scream. The other 2 attacked together. She dodged the first energy blast and caught the second with the body of their dead leader. She threw herself forward under their guard and struck with precision that only 300 years of combat could teach. In 4 seconds, all 3 assassins were dead at her feet. But the effort had cost her. Her wounds had reopened. She felt blood running down her side. Her vision was blurring. She had pushed her healing body too far. She fell to her knees in the snow, surrounded by the bodies of her enemies. That was when Tejo came outside. He stood in the doorway, staring at the scene before him. 3 dead aliens, weapons he had never seen before, and Valera, covered in blood, kneeling in the center of it all. She looked up at him. She saw the shock on his face, the horror, the realization that she was not what she had seemed. Valera, he whispered. What? What are you? She tried to stand, but her legs would not hold her. She collapsed into the snow. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Tejo running toward her, his face full of fear and something else. Something that looked like determination. Then there was nothing. Valera woke to the smell of blood and medicine. She was back in the farmhouse, lying on the same bed where she had spent so many weeks recovering. Her wounds had been bandaged again, Tejo's work. He was sitting in the corner of the room, watching her. His face was pale. His hands were shaking slightly. But he had not run. He was still here. You killed them, he said quietly. 3 armed soldiers, in seconds, with your bare hands. She did not deny it. There was no point in lying anymore. Yes. Who are you, Valera? Really? She sat up slowly, ignoring the pain in her side. She looked at this man who had saved her life, who had shown her kindness she did not deserve. He deserved the truth, even if it would make him hate her. I am Valera, Empress of the Aethran Empire. My territory spans 400 star systems. I have ruled for 300 years. My enemies call me the Voidwalker, because wherever I go, I leave emptiness behind. She paused, gathering the strength to continue. I am a conqueror, Tejo, a killer. I have destroyed armies and burned worlds. Millions have died by my command. Billions bow in fear at the mention of my name. I am the most powerful and most feared being in the known galaxy. The words hung in the air between them. She watched his face, waiting for the disgust, the fear, the hatred. But Tejo only looked at her with those calm, steady eyes. Why? He asked. Why what? Why did you do all those things? It was not the question she expected. No one had ever asked her why. They only asked how they could serve her or how they could kill her. Because I was born to rule, she said. My people believe that the strong must lead and the weak must follow. I was the strongest, so I led. I conquered because that is what my people do. I killed because that is what emperors do. Is that what you believe? Again, he surprised her. She opened her mouth to say yes. Of course, that was the natural order of things. But the words would not come. I used to believe it, she said finally. I never questioned it. It was simply truth. The strong rule, the weak serve. Mercy is weakness. Power is everything. And now, she looked down at her bandaged hands, hands that had ended countless lives, hands that Taeho had held in the darkness when she was afraid. Now I do not know what I believe. Taeho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was rising. The bodies of the assassins were still in the yard, covered now in fresh snow. My grandfather was a soldier in a war, he said quietly. He did terrible things. He killed people. He followed orders without question. And for the rest of his life, he carried that guilt. He told me, before he died, that the worst prison is the one you build inside yourself. He turned to face her. You have done terrible things, Valera. I will not pretend otherwise. But you are not dead. You are not finished. The question is not what you were. The question is what you will be. She stared at him. How could this simple human say such things? How could he look at her, knowing what she was, and not run away in terror? Are you not afraid of me? She asked. Yes, he admitted. I am very afraid. I saw what you did to those soldiers. I know you could kill me without effort. He paused. But I also know you, the real you. The woman who laughed when she broke the eggs. The woman who let a baby cow follow her around the barn. The woman who cried in her sleep and held my hand for comfort. That woman is not real. She is a mask. No, Taeho said firmly. The Empress is the mask. The woman I know is who you really are, underneath all that power and blood. You just forgot. Valera felt tears forming in her eyes. She could not remember the last time she had cried. Centuries, perhaps. Tears were weakness. Tears were forbidden. But she cried now. She cried for the millions who had died because of her. She cried for the centuries of emptiness and loneliness. She cried for the woman she might have been if she had been born in a different world to a different people. Taeho came to her side and sat beside her. He did not touch her, did not speak. He simply sat with her as she wept, letting her feel her pain without judgment. When her tears finally stopped, she looked at him with new eyes. Why are you not running? She asked. You should hate me. You should want me gone. Maybe I should, he agreed, but I do not, because I believe people can change. I have to believe that. Otherwise, what hope is there for any of us? Outside, a new sound filled the air. More ships approaching, many more. Valera stood up, her body tense. They are coming. The ones I killed were only scouts. More will follow. Then let them come. She looked at Taeho with disbelief. He had walked to a cabinet and pulled out an old hunting rifle. It was a primitive weapon, useless against alien soldiers. But he held it with determination. What are you doing? She demanded. Standing with you. Whatever you were before, you are my friend now. I will not abandon my friends. You will die. Maybe, but I will die fighting for something that matters. Valera wanted to argue. She wanted to force him to run, to save himself. But she saw the look in his eyes and knew it was hopeless. This stubborn, impossible human would not leave her side. And somehow, that gave her strength. Very well, she said. She picked up one of the alien weapons from the dead scouts. Her hands remembered how to hold it, how to aim it, how to kill with it. If we are going to die, let us die well. Taeho smiled at her. It was a small, scared smile, but it was real. Together, he said. Together, she agreed. And side by side, they prepared to face the storm. The enemy came with the morning light. 12 ships descended from the clouds, black and sharp like blades cutting through the sky. They surrounded the small farm from all directions. There would be no escape. Valera counted the soldiers pouring out of the ships. 40, 50, more. The Dominion had sent an army to kill her. Stay behind me, she told Tejo. Do not fight unless you must. But she knew they could not survive this. Even at her full strength, 50 elite soldiers would be a challenge. In her weakened state, with only one weapon, it was impossible. Still, she would not die quietly. She would take as many of them with her as she could. The soldiers formed a circle around the farmhouse. Their leader stepped forward, removing his mask to show his face. He was tall and pale, with scars covering his skin, a veteran of many battles. Empress Valera, he called out, surrender now, and we will make your death quick. Resist, and you will suffer. Valera raised her weapon. Come and try. The leader smiled coldly. He raised his hand to signal the attack. That was when the sky exploded. A massive ship burst through the clouds above them, so large it blocked out the sun. It was shaped like a great bird of prey, its wings spread wide, its hull covered in golden symbols that Valera knew well. The Aethran Imperial flagship. Her ship? Commander Kale had found her. From the belly of the great ship, smaller vessels poured out like angry insects. They fell upon the Dominion soldiers with terrible speed. Energy weapons flashed across the morning sky. The sound of battle filled the air. Valera did not hesitate. She charged forward into the chaos, her weapon blazing. The Dominion soldiers were caught between two forces now, surrounded and confused. She cut through them with deadly precision. Tejo stayed close to the farmhouse, taking cover behind the stone wall. He fired his rifle at enemies who came near, though his bullets did little damage. But he distracted them, gave Valera openings to attack. The battle was brutal, but brief. The Aethran forces were too many, too well trained. Within minutes, the Dominion soldiers were dead or fleeing. The remaining enemy ships tried to escape, but the Imperial fighters hunted them down. When the last enemy fell, silence returned to the farm. The snow was stained with alien blood. The barn was on fire, but they were alive. A shuttle landed in the yard, and Commander KL stepped out. He was tall and broad, with blue skin and golden eyes. He wore the armor of an Imperial commander, decorated with medals from 100 campaigns. When he saw Valera, he dropped to one knee. My Empress, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I thought you were dead. We have been searching for weeks. Rise, Kale, Valera said. You found me. That is what matters. Kale stood, but his eyes went to Tejo, who was approaching slowly with his rifle still in his hands. The commander's expression became confused, then suspicious. Who is this? He asked. A native of this world? His name is Tejo. He saved my life. He has been caring for me since I crashed here. Kale looked at Tejo like he was examining an insect. A primitive. How unusual. Valera felt a flash of anger. He is not primitive. He is braver than most soldiers I have known. You will treat him with respect. The commander's eyes widened in surprise. In 300 years of service, he had never heard his Empress speak this way about anyone. He bowed his head quickly. Of course, my Empress. Forgive me. Tejo watched this exchange with amazement. This was Valera's world. Ships that filled the sky. Soldiers who bowed before her. Power beyond anything he had ever imagined. She truly was an Empress. My Empress, Kale said, we must leave immediately. The Dominion knows you are alive. Your enemies in the Senate are moving against you. There is talk of choosing a new ruler. The Empire needs you. Valera nodded slowly. She had known this moment would come. Her duty called her back to the stars, back to the throne, back to the life she had lived for 300 years. But when she looked at Tejo, she felt something break inside her. Give me a moment, she told Kale. I need to speak with him. The commander looked unhappy, but he bowed and stepped back. Valera walked to Tejo. He was covered in dirt and blood. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were steady as he looked at her. "You have to go," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, my people need me. My enemies will destroy everything if I do not return. I understand. Do you?" She took his hands in hers. "Taeho, you changed me. These weeks with you, this simple life, it showed me something I had forgotten, that there is more to existence than power and conquest. That strength, without kindness, is empty." He squeezed her hands gently. "Then, take that with you. Be a different kind of ruler. Be the person I know you can be." She smiled, and there were tears in her eyes again. "I will try. For you, for myself, for my people." Behind them, Kale cleared his throat impatiently. The Empire waited for no one, not even its Empress. "Will I ever see you again?" Taeho asked. Valera did not answer with words. She leaned forward and kissed his forehead, a gesture of blessing in her culture. Then she pressed something into his hand, a small device no bigger than a coin. "This will let you speak to me across any distance," she said. "Whenever you need me, wherever you are, I will hear you." She stepped back, forcing herself to release his hands. Every part of her wanted to stay, but she was an empress. She had responsibilities that went beyond her own heart. "Goodbye, Taeho." "Goodbye, Valera." She turned and walked toward the shuttle without looking back. If she looked back, she would not be able to leave. Kale followed her inside. The shuttle rose into the air, joining the great flagship above. Within moments, they were gone, vanishing into the clouds. Taeho stood alone in his ruined yard, watching the empty sky. The device was warm in his hand. He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew that somewhere among the stars, an empress was thinking of him. And that was enough. The Imperial Senate fell silent as Valera entered the Great Hall. 1,000 senators from 1,000 worlds watched her walk toward the throne. They had heard the rumors. They knew she had been missing for months. They knew about the assassination attempt. Many of them had hoped she would never return. She wore her ceremonial armor now, black and gold, gleaming in the light of 100 floating crystals. The crown of stars rested on her silver hair. She looked every part the ruler they had feared for 3 centuries. But something was different. Something had changed in her eyes. She climbed the steps to her throne and turned to face the assembly. Her voice rang out across the hall, clear and strong. "I know what you are thinking. You are wondering where I have been. You are wondering if I am weak. You are wondering if this is your chance to take my power." Silence. No one dared to speak. "Let me answer your questions. I was betrayed. I was nearly killed. I fell to a distant world with no ships, no soldiers, no weapons. For months, I was helpless, weak, alone." Murmurs spread through the crowd. The mighty Empress admitting weakness? This was unheard of. And in that weakness, I found something I had lost. Something I had forgotten in 300 years of war and conquest. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "I found my soul." She descended 2 steps toward them, a gesture that shocked the assembly. Emperors did not come down to their subjects. Emperors stayed above. I was saved by a being from a primitive world, a simple man with no power, no army, no titles. He found me dying in the wreckage of my ship. He carried me to his home. He healed my wounds. He asked for nothing in return. Her voice softened, but it carried to every corner of the vast hall. I asked him why he saved me. Do you know what he said? He said, "You were hurt. What else would I do?" As if kindness to a stranger was the most natural thing in the world. As if mercy was not weakness, but strength. She let the words settle over them. "For 300 years, I have ruled through fear. I have conquered, destroyed, dominated. I have built the greatest empire in the history of our species. But I have also created a galaxy full of enemies. A galaxy full of hate. A galaxy that will never know peace as long as I rule the way I have ruled." She climbed back to her throne and sat down. Her eyes were hard now, commanding. That ends today. The senators erupted in confused noise. Some shouted in protest. Others called out in support. Most simply stared in disbelief. I am declaring an end to the wars of conquest. Valera continued. From this day forward, the Aethron Empire will not attack any world that does not threaten us. We will seek diplomacy before violence. We will build alliances instead of demanding submission. This is madness, shouted one senator, rising to his feet. He was an old warrior, covered in scars from decades of battle. You speak of weakness and mercy. Our ancestors would be ashamed. Valera looked at him with cold eyes. Our ancestors are dead. We are not. And I choose to build a future where our children do not have to spend their lives killing and dying in endless wars. The other empires will see us as weak. They will attack. Then we will defend ourselves. I am not abandoning our strength, Senator. I am choosing when to use it. There is a difference between being unable to fight and choosing not to fight. The first is weakness. The second is wisdom. The old senator had no answer. He sat down slowly, his face troubled. Valera stood once more. I know this is difficult. I know many of you have built your lives on war. But I am asking you to trust me, to follow me on this new path. Because I have seen what life can be without constant battle. I have tasted peace, and it is sweeter than any victory. She raised her hand, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the hall. It showed a small blue planet spinning quietly in the darkness of space. This world is called Earth. It is primitive by our standards. Its people have not even left their own solar system. But a man from this world taught me more about strength and honor than 3 centuries of ruling an empire. From this day forward, Earth is under my personal protection. Any ship that approaches with hostile intent will be destroyed. Any being who harms its people will answer to me. The senators stared at the image of Earth. Such a small, insignificant world. Why would the Empress care about it? But they did not question her. Not out loud. The look in her eyes told them that this was not open for debate. The session ended with more questions than answers. Valera knew that many senators would oppose her. Some would even try to remove her from power. But she was ready. She had faced death on a distant world and survived. She had found something worth fighting for, beyond conquest. She would not fail. That night, Valera stood alone in her private chambers, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in a small farmhouse on a small world, Tejo was looking at the same stars. She took out a device identical to the one she had given him. She pressed it gently, activating the connection. Tejo, she said softly, can you hear me? A moment of silence. Then his voice, distant but clear. Valera, I was hoping you would call. She smiled. It was a real smile, not the cold expression she showed her subjects. I kept my promise. I am trying to be different. It is not easy, but I am trying. That is all anyone can do, he said. How are you? Tired, lonely. The throne is cold without someone to share it with. Maybe someday you will find someone. Maybe I already have. Silence on the other end. Then, softly, I am just a simple farmer on a small planet. You are the man who saved my life and my soul. You are the bravest person I have ever known. Nothing about you is simple. She heard him laugh quietly. It was a good sound, a warm sound. Will you come back someday? He asked. Yes, when things are stable here, when the Empire no longer needs me, every moment. I will return to your small farm, and you will teach me how to feed chickens without breaking the eggs. I would like that. So would I. They talked for hours about small things and big things, about his farm and her empire, about the future and the past. When they finally said goodbye, Valera felt lighter than she had in centuries. She looked out at the stars once more. The universe was vast and cold. and dangerous. But somewhere in it was a small blue world, and on that world was a man who had taught her how to be human again. And that made all the difference. Months later, Hana came to visit her brother. She found him on the porch, watching the sunset. He looked peaceful, happy even. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Teho smiled, "Just wondering what is out there." In his pocket, a small device pulsed gently with a distant light. A message from across the stars. He did not know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew that he was no longer alone, and somewhere in the universe, an Empress was changing the galaxy, one act of kindness at a time. That was enough. That was more than enough.